It appears mandates once again rear their ugly head, and this time it will be under the guise of, wait for it, COVID. Shocker. Mask mandates will be first, and don't expect that to be the only ones. Let's go ahead and get into the nature of what will be happening, where it will be pushed, and where it won't. Let's go. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas says there will be no mask mandate in Texas. This is in response to an article from The Hill where it says mask mandates re-emerge amid upturning COVID-19 cases. We will be getting into that article in just a moment, don't you worry. So, I didn't listen to the mask mandates in the first place. I wore them just at first to acquiesce because it really pissed off my dad that I didn't wear them. And then I was just absolutely over it once I saw the data about the fact of how inefficient the masks actually are. The fact that they do not stop the spread, that you do not actually stop yourself when you're wearing the cloth mask because it is not small enough when it comes to the micron filter to stop the actual virus from getting through it. The only thing that would be is something like an N95 mask, and even then people don't properly fit N95 masks to their face, and then because of that, they're not actually going to have proper protection, which means they would still be getting the virus out. And even then, N95 masks only protect you, they don't protect other people. So, and the whole point of this was apparently because what was initially sold was why you need to wear the mask and why you need to get the vaccine is because the whole point is it's not about you, it's about other people. You have to protect other people because in the process of protecting other people, you're showing how good of a person you are. That was the narrative. Okay, moving on to Scott Adams. He says, we need to bankrupt the first corporation that requires masking. Total destruction fast to keep our freedom. This is in response to Greg Abbott's tweet. And I fully agree. I want to see whatever happens to the corporations that try and institute mask mandates and vax mandates. I want to see their losses be so exponential in comparison to that of something like Target and Bud Light with what happened with the recent fiasco during Pride Month. I would very much like to see what happens to them absolutely blow out the losses that we saw when it comes to the comparable value of what it means to the institutional powerhouses that will be losing this money. Because who knows if it'll be corporations as big as Bud Light and Target. But what I do know is you can set a precedent through the market. And that precedent will show that people are not standing for these ESG and CEI mandates that are operating in a top-down totalitarian restrictions, that are putting regulatory measures on the market, that are curtailing people's capacity to operate freely within the system that would be the economy. Again, I can't get over how huge this is going to be when we see these corporations try and push this out once more and try and say that COVID is a threat once again, when Joe Biden and his institution already stated that we have already moved on from the COVID pandemic and we're past the point of COVID being an emergency, which is why we're dropping the restrictions, which in itself was already arbitrary because the nature of them dropping the restrictions was giving zero data and zero reasoning why. It was just, well, we're out of the pandemic. We're out of the actual moment where we need to be extraneously focused on it. It's like, why? It's like, because. They didn't literally give us anything. It was just, well, COVID's over. It's like, but it's not. There's still COVID in the hospital. There were actually more people in the hospital with COVID when this happened than there were when this was initially instituted. So this mandate actually made no sense based on the simple data that you would look at when it comes to the understanding of how many people actually had the virus and were in the hospital with it compared to when it started and when it was ended. It simply doesn't make sense. Okay. Moving on, let's go ahead and see what Being Libertarian has to say, and this says, new vaccine recommendations incoming. Are you getting one? I didn't wear the masks. I didn't get the vaccine. I'm not going to get any of them. Honestly, I wasn't against any of the vaccines from any of the point in my life ever. I never had any questions about them growing up, but now looking at them and looking at the fact that I'm going to be a father one day, yeah, you bet your ass I'm questioning this stuff in the future. Because when it comes down to it, you see people getting into arguments with their local doctors and their local pediatricians, and they've done nothing more than simple rudimentary research to go ahead and find the most minuscule amounts of data, and they're out arguing their doctors. And these are supposed to be the people that you would assume would be the most educated on the topics, considering the nature that they are your local doctor. That these are the people that you would assume would be most up to date, considering it's their job to be, up to date with public health. But what we see is, and what COVID really exposed is a lot of doctors are nothing more than midwits. And that's not a knock on them. They mean well and they have beauty and nobility in their heart, and that's amazing. And that's great because they care about people, and that's a reason why they're doctors and nurses. But they're people who just answer questions. That's it. They don't ask questions. They don't look for answers. They just get answers and then they give them to other people. And that is very much what we saw with what happened with the COVID vaccine. People were just told what to do. They were told exactly how to give them the shot, how many people had to take. They didn't tell them exactly why. And then when you went ahead and actually opened up the data sheet that was given to people with the vaccine that is supposed to have all of the trial data, it is completely blank. Go ahead and look that up yourself and you will see it. Go look that up right now. Pause this video, go find that, and you will be able to see that the actual sheets of paper that people pull out, there are videos of this, of pharmacists and doctors pulling out the data that is supposed to be wrapped up, like there is with every single vaccine that talks about the dangers and risks of the possibilities of taking these shots. The papers themselves are completely blank. Okay, let's move on and go ahead and listen to Karine Jean-Pierre being the spokesperson for the White House, aka the White House propagandist.
The president said in Tahoe that he had tentatively decided to recommend everyone get the new vaccine. When is he going to decide finally?
So as I think you've heard from the FDA and CDC, they've made an announcement on the new vaccine. So certainly they said that there'll be an updated vaccine mid-September, I believe. So we know that, as you all know, vaccinations against COVID-19 remains the safest protection for avoiding hospitalization, long-term health outcomes, and death.
Okay. She said, safest for avoiding hospitalization, long-term health outcomes, and death. We don't know that because we don't have proper data to show us this. Pfizer doesn't have to give out the data for 55 years. We don't know this when it comes to the hospitals because we have such poor recording data on the nature of how people got sick, how people died with or from COVID, were people put in the hospital with or from COVID, because our reporting was so shoddy because they needed to skyrocket the numbers so that they could exponentially expand the nature of the powers that they meant to implement when it came to the pandemic. Because all it was the example of government seeing something that was a major travesty and a huge tragedy, and then they used it to go ahead and take an inch because that's what you gave them, and then they ran with it and took a mile. It's exactly what they did. They saw a tragedy and they absolutely exploited it, just like they did with 9/11 and the Patriot Act. They took it, the tragedy that 9/11 was the death of 2,977 Americans, and what did they do? They used it to curtail people's freedoms for 20 years that got us to this point where they're now considering parents domestic extremists because the FBI is relegating them as so because they do not agree with what the school boards are teaching, and the school boards are teaching stuff from the Department of Education, which is relegated from the government. Okay. Let's go ahead and let Karine Jean-Pierre finish.
Which is why we are going to be encouraging Americans to stay up to date on their vaccines.
It's not even encouraging Americans to stay up to date on the information that makes them feel best on what they feel the decision is, to talk to their doctor, to talk to multiple doctors and medical experts, to confer and make sure that they feel whatever decision they choose is best for them. No. It's just make sure, go ahead and get your vaccine. That's it. It's not ask any questions. We need to make sure what's best for every single American. It's just we're going to make sure this is enforced on everyone. And by enforced, we mean it's going to be socially enforced. It's not actually going to be, mandated. It's not like there would ever be mandates pushed by the government for people to take a vaccine. That would be absolutely ridiculous. It's not like anything like that would ever happen. Let's go ahead and see about these articles that are coming up. From CNN Health, it may be time to break out the masks against COVID, some experts say. I don't know about you, but I'll never take health advice personally from CNN Health. That's just me. You do as you please. You go ahead and talk to your own doctor about what's best for you, because I don't know what's best for anyone, because I'm not a medical expert. Moving on to talking about medical topics. Okay, it may be time to break out the mask against COVID, some experts say. So, what's so fascinating about this? We're going to be doing the same thing that we already did before, so we're reporting the process of insanity and hoping for a different outcome. But not only that, it's how they cap this off that's so important. Some experts say. That means that there are experts, by CNN's own admission, that disagree with the established ethos that's being purported by the establishment. People that do not push the current narrative about the nature of vaccines and masks. And what does CNN do? They avoid that. They admit that there are some experts that disagree, but they'll never talk about that because that would be highlighting people that don't push the narrative. And I've gathered all of these articles here so I can go ahead and somewhat tell a story about how goalpost shifting works. And this is how the narrative shift will always work. And this is the slippery slope fallacy in real time. This is if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And this is the perfect example of government exploiting a tragedy. So, it may be time to break out the mask against COVID, some experts say. Well, did face masks actually help fight COVID? Scientists want you to wear yours again. And as we just saw, there are experts that are saying that it does not do its job. They do not agree with the established ethos, but some scientists want you to do so. Don't you go ahead and read on what those people think and the disparate opinions between those. We're not going to actually let you see that conversation. We're just going to tell you what the people that we think, and then by that standard, you should do what we say. Okay. Moving on, we get to the article. This is what Greg Abbott initially responded to. Mask mandates reemerge amid upturn in COVID-19 cases. So it starts with, it may be time to break out the masks, to mask mandates will be reemerging. So, you see the sliding goalpost. It goes from, maybe you should go ahead and wear your mask, I think it might be relevant, to scientists are saying that you should do this, to there's going to be mandates, you have to go ahead and orient yourself around this new fundamental regulation we'll be putting on society through top-down control. And then it goes to this new interesting information from the NIH, and this is from the Daily Mail. It says, mass study published by NIH suggests N95 COVID masks may expose wearers to dangerous levels of toxic compounds linked to seizure and cancer. I remember throughout the entire COVID pandemic when the NIH and the CDC and the Department of Health were basically talking about the relevance of N95 masks because it was talking about how important they were to fight COVID because they were the best and most efficient masks that people could wear. But they didn't have this, they didn't know any of this information, or maybe they did and this study hadn't been fully purported. But again, this goes with the fact of, in the process of always trying to regulate from a top-down standard, the government will inadvertently always cause more harm. I don't know what a better example of this is. How many people died from cancer, didn't get proper diagnosis from their doctors, were incredibly ill and didn't go see medical practitioners, and because of that, it led to an exacerbation of whatever ailed them, and eventually led to their deaths, all because the pandemic blew out the possibility of them actually being able to interact with their doctors or medical experts, because we completely regulated the structure of how we operate in society to the most minuscule level of complete and total, and I mean total evaluation on every single level, that people that needed the most simple of medical procedures to possibly save them from their ailments couldn't even receive them. At what point is that not criminal? How many lives did we save? Because I remember the whole point of the pandemic and the lockdowns, and I remember a friend who is no longer a friend that blocked me over all of this stuff, sadly. Nonetheless, wish them well. Can't say I hold any hatred in my heart for that. If I'm living rent-free in someone's head and what I'm saying or doing is plaguing them, I'd sooner rather have them not talk to me so I'm not ailing them and giving them any distress, because that's simply not what I seek to do. If I'm plaguing what someone is thinking in their mind and they can't escape it, just block me, man, because it's not worth it. And that goes for anyone. And this actually, realistically, I think goes for the understanding of why so many people are so bad about listening to people who disagree with them. Because they're already in their own field of thought and they don't want to listen to anyone outside of it, because a lot of times listening to disparate opinions, especially on things that are so controversial and many of the times so fundamental that people believe so heavily because they've been effectively investing themselves in the ideals so heavily, well, it hurts when the fundamentals of your belief system are challenged and then they're effectively being assaulted. And if your fundamental belief system is what gives you your grounding and you believe it's what makes you a moral person, then very well it's possible that the ideal of your morality could very well be being assaulted in your own mind. Okay, moving on, we go from the understanding of masks were so relevant and we have to go ahead and possibly wear them, to don't you worry, we're going to need to mandate these, to now we see that the masks that we've been telling you to wear actually go ahead and give you toxic compounds and are linked to seizures and cancer. Well, don't you worry, the latest COVID variant could be the best yet at evading immunity. And that's why we have to go ahead and say we need to fund a new coronavirus vaccine. And don't you worry, we're funding a new coronavirus vaccine, and because of it, the Biden administration will be urging all Americans to get their boosters. You see how this goes? You see how the sliding scale always shifts? It will always be this way. This is why top-down totalitarian restriction from the state will always be a problem. This is the fundamental ethos of why I am a libertarian. Here we see the latest COVID variant could be the best yet at evading immunity. So what's that mean? It means the restrictions that you're purporting that didn't stop it last time will not stop it this time. It's going to spread even more, even further, even faster. Because what happens with viruses is they become far more contagious and far less lethal, meaning they're better at escaping immunity because they will get far more people sick, But the thing when a virus goes and it evolves is the whole point is that it's trying to naturally evolve so it affects you less and less because the virus wants to survive and it wants to evolve further and then spread and procreate and push on to more hosts so it can then live its longest life. This is exactly how all viruses work. It will naturally get to the point of evading immunity better than anything else, just like the flu or the common cold. It's why there are new flu vaccines every single year. Okay, that's really all I've got for this. I don't have anything else to say except I will not be complying with any of the top-down restrictions and mandates that are put down from the Biden administration, the possible Trump administration, the Ramaswamy administration. I don't care. I will not be doing any of this totalitarian bullshit once more. Not one iota of this fucking garbage will go amongst my perception. And I'm not going to buy any of this fucking nonsense. I want to see the data, I want to actually have it distributed to me, and I want to see the conversations between people that disagree. You know, the experts that people like CNN were saying were so relevant, unless it's just, you know, some experts that they disagree with. That's all I've got for this. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. That's all. Again, I don't know what else to say. This has been so fascinating because we once again see that this is going to be pushed on the populace again. And there are going to be people saying, no, it's not that big of a deal, don't worry, they wouldn't do it. But they absolutely would, because they did it once, and you think they wouldn't do it again? Yeah, right. Again, if you like this, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. I'm sure there's someone that thinks I'm wrong about this, but again, I'm right. So, tell me where I'm wrong, stay lovely, stay great, peace out.